Okay, so you've heard about Dungeons and Dragons. You want to play. You're excited, maybe a bit nervous. You show up to the first session, and your dungeon master hands you a big book and says, "Read the rules." In that moment, one of two things usually happens. Either you light up and think, "Cool, I love diving into systems and lore." Or you feel that little internal scream, "Wait, homework? I thought this was supposed to be fun." I get it. I've been there. I've been the new player, staring at a wall of text and strange words. And I've been the DM, silently praying that players will read at least something. So, no, I'm not going to tell you, don't bother. You don't need the book. The rules do matter. They're not there to punish you. But before you crack that book open and your eyes start to glaze over, I want to give you a bit more meaning behind it. Not just here are the rules, but why they exist, what they actually do for you, and how understanding even a small part of them can make your game richer, easier, and much more satisfying. Because once you understand the why behind the rules, the what and the how stop feeling like homework and start feeling like a toolbox for telling the best possible story with your friends. Hi, my name is Nikita. I'm originally from Russia, but I've been living in the United Kingdom for 9 years now. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you already know me and I'm your dungeon master. I really want you to play more, and I want you to enjoy the game on a deeper level. If you don't know me yet, welcome. I'm a professional software product manager and non professional DM in Dungeons and Dragons. Also, I build software that helps players and game masters make their games better. In this video, I want to give you a simple countdown: 5 reasons to care about the rules and the book, and to get inspired as a player. We'll go from number 5 down to number 1. When you first open the Dungeons and Dragons rulebook, your brain honestly goes, "Can I go back to Monopoly, please?" You get hit with abilities, modifiers, spell lists, classes, races, and a bunch of weird words like saving throw or advantage. Your first thought might be, "I'm too dumb for this. This game is not for me." The important thing is this: almost everyone feels that way at the beginning. Even the people who now casually talk about builds, optimization, and something called the meta. You are not stupid. You are just looking at a system that is new to you, like the first time you saw a programming language, a musical score, or a map of the London Underground. At the beginning, you don't need to know everything. That part is true. But I'll be honest with you, this game does ask for a little bit of preparation before and after the session. You should be at least a little bit interested in doing tiny bits of homework, thinking about your character's story, updating your sheet, remembering what you actually want to do in the world. The good news is that the numbers and modifiers are not the most important thing. They are just tools. Which brings me to number 4. There are 3 things you should care about more than memorizing the book. Who is your character as a person? What can they roughly do? Are you willing to say, "I want to do this. How do I roll for it?" Let's start with the first one. You are not just an elf wizard or a human fighter. You are a person in that world. For example, you are not just an elf wizard. You might be a former court mage who ran away from the palace because he accidentally turned the royal poodle into something very slippery and very loud. That is already a story. It gives you personality, guilt, fear, a sense of humor. You suddenly know how this character looks at the world. Second, what can your character roughly do? Do they fight, heal, persuade people, cast spells, or just shoulder charge every locked door they see? You don't need every little number in your head. You just need a clear feeling. I'm good at this, I'm bad at that, and I'm okay with it. Third, you don't have to be a walking rules encyclopedia. You just have to be willing to say, "I want to do this. How do I roll for it?" That one sentence already makes you a good player. It shows that you have intent, you have an idea, and you respect that there is a system behind it. Example scene: you're at the table. Your character is a rogue trying to quietly open a chest. You say, "I check the chest for traps, then I try to pick the lock. I carefully slide my thieves' tools into the keyhole. The dungeon master says, okay, roll dexterity with proficiency in thieves' tools. You roll the die. You fail. The dungeon master says, you hear a click and realize it wasn't the lock. It was the trap. Acid sprays into your face. The rest of the party is delighted. They now have a fresh reason to tease you for the next few sessions. That is basically how the game feels. A bit more complex than just rolling one die, and that is exactly why it has depth. Number 3. The rules are not chains. People often say, come on, Dungeons and Dragons is simple. You say what you do, you roll, that's it. On the surface, that is actually true. The core loop is really simple. You say what you want to do, the dungeon master tells you what to roll, you roll the die, everyone either cheers or groans. But that is only the first layer. Underneath, the book your DM gave you holds a lot more. Classes with unique features, spells, racial traits, combat rules, social encounters, travel, exploration, and more. You don't have to learn it all at once, but it helps to understand why it's there. Example scene. You're in a city. Your character is a charismatic bard. The party wants to walk past the city guards without showing any papers. You say, I walk up to the guards, smile like we've been best friends since childhood, and tell them the captain already cleared us. We just need to get through. The dungeon master says, okay, make a persuasion check. You roll a 19. With your modifier, you are incredibly convincing. The dungeon master says, the guard squints at you, raises an eyebrow, then nods and says, all right, but if anything goes wrong, I've never seen you. From the outside, it looks like you just rolled a die. But inside the system, your stats, your class choice, your skill proficiencies, and your roleplay all work together to make that moment happen. This is what the rules are doing for you. They turn what could be the DM just decides into a game where your build, your choices, and a bit of luck all matter. The rules are like the engine in a car. From the outside, you just drive. Inside, there's a lot of machinery that makes the ride smooth and interesting. Number 2. Let's be honest. Dungeons and Dragons is a form of gambling. You're not gambling with money. You're gambling with the story of your character. Every roll of the die decides whether you steal the artifact, pull your friend out of danger, land your spell, or survive this fight at all. Example scene. Your character is a paladin. In front of you stands a massive demon about to finish off your friend. You understand. If you miss now, your friend might die. You say, I raise my sword, call out my god's name, and swing with everything I've got. The dungeon master says, roll to hit. You roll the die. Everyone is watching. The silence at the table might feel like you're all taking a final exam together. You roll the natural one. The dungeon master says, you slip on the blood-soaked floor. Your sword slams into the pillar beside you, and the demon, without even looking at you, lifts its claw higher. In that moment, you realize this really is a kind of gambling. But instead of losing money, you gain a story. You might end up with a character who has a scar, one eye missing, and a deep trauma around trusting their own dice. The rules in that book are what make this tension possible. They define risk. They define what is at stake. They make your victories earned and your failures meaningful. Number 1. The book is a map of what your story can become. Now we pull everything back to that moment when your DM hands you the Player's Hand Book and says, read the rules. That book is not a test of your intelligence. It is not a barrier you have to pass to be allowed to have fun. It is more like a map of a huge playground. You don't have to memorize the whole map, but it helps a lot to at least know that the playground is big and that you can go far beyond I hit it with my sword. Dungeons and Dragons is not a game where you're handed a script that says Scene 1, Scene 2, Final Boss. It is an open world where the story is written as you play. You have a game master, also called a dungeon master. They create the world, Fill it with people, monsters, and cities. Design problems and conflicts, and voice every non player character, often in very questionable accents. Then there are you and the other players. You create your characters, decide what they care about, choose where to go, and constantly destroy the dungeon master's plans. That is part of the fun. Sometimes painful, always memorable. The Player's Handbook and the other books your DM might mention show you how far this can go. What reading some of it gives you, you start seeing the depth. You see your future abilities. You see alternative paths for your class. You discover tools for problems you haven't faced yet. In the game, you'll have moments like, I wish I could do this right now. Then you'll know that somewhere in that book, there is probably a rule, a spell, a feature that does exactly that. You also take some load off your dungeon master. The more basics you can find yourself, the more time the DM has for story, atmosphere, and cool scenes. It is like music. You can strum a few chords and have fun without knowing theory. But if, little by little, you start to understand the theory, you suddenly notice that you play more consciously and more freely. So when your DM, maybe a Russian guy who's been living in the UK for 9 years, puts a book in front of you and says, read the rules, I want you to hear something else behind those words. I am not saying prove that you're smart enough. I am saying there's a huge world here. Let me show you the tools that will help you make your own part of this world unforgettable. If you understand the why behind the rules, then reading a couple of chapters stops feeling like homework and starts feeling like learning new tools for your character's story. Dungeons and Dragons is hard at the beginning. That is normal. The rules are not simple in the sense of tiny. They are simple in the sense of buildable. You can start small and then go deeper, step by step. So here's my invitation to you. Don't start with which class is strongest. Start with what kind of story do I want to live through at the table with my friends? Use the book as a map, not as a wall. And I promise you, there is a version of Dungeons and Dragons that fits the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you like to play. Thanks for listening, and may you someday roll that natural 20 at the most dramatic possible moment. If you like the video, then you might need to subscribe to this channel. There's going to be more of those, about how to be a better player, and also what I'm doing to make managing games between sessions easier and create more opportunities. Bye.